Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another podcast episode. I'm yours truly, Marcus. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. We are going over the week one matchup, which is the Miami Dolphins against the Indianapolis Colts. First game of the season for the Indianapolis Colts and the Miami Dolphins. Clean slate for both teams. Both teams starting 0-0. The sky's the limit, but I cannot do this alone. I got my guy Landon with me. Landon, how we doing?
Doing good, man. I'd say this is an official first, doing one while driving home for work. But hey, sometimes we all have to make sacrifices, and that's how it goes. So I'm doing good, especially now that I'm off work. Obviously that's usually a lot better.
That's good, man. That's good. Definitely good to hear. Leaving work is the best feeling ever. But we are here to talk Colts and Dolphins. This is going to be a very interesting matchup. First test of the year for the Indianapolis Colts. And what better test is to go against them than with the speedy Miami Dolphins team. This is the first test of the season. Debut of Daniel Jones should be very exciting. And, we get to see if this is the right move for the Indianapolis Colts moving forward. And nothing is the best impression like the first impression. Just give me your thoughts really quick, Landon, on Daniel Jones' debut and what would be, your dream prediction for him going into this game against this Miami defense.
Yeah, I mean, really, like it's quite simple, and it's something that like Shane Steichen has preached all off season, and this is pretty much going to be the same game plan for Daniel Jones, not just in week one, but really throughout the whole season. And that's stay clean as far as, taking sacks, avoiding negative plays, turnovers, staying on schedule, finding completions in the passing game. Uh, basically just managing the game, doing all the little things correctly, getting them into, good situations, getting them out of bad situations, not making bad plays, catastrophic plays. Um, just overall playing a clean game and letting these talented offensive weapons that he now has here, Tyler Warren, Josh Downs, Pittman, Pierce, Jonathan Taylor, um, AD Mitchell. Like there's a lot of talent on this roster. Just getting the balls into those guys' hands and letting them do the hard work. That's really what I would look for when I'm watching this Sunday for Daniel Jones.
Yeah, for sure. We mentioned how Daniel Jones is with these short yard passes and everything just hitting, your layups pretty much. And he's pretty much that type of guy because we know his arm strength isn't all the way there. But if it's like something 5 yards and short, he's there for doing it. And that's something the Colts been
Well,
missing.
here I do want to like knock this myth because people think like they see Daniel Jones and they're like, oh, like he doesn't really have a big arm or anything. Like relative to a guy like Anthony Richardson, who Colts fans are like used to watching over the last couple of years in spurts, basically. Like, yes, he does not have that kind of arm, but he does not have a noodle arm. Like he can drive the ball in the windows. He can hit, you know, he can hit some velocity on some of these passes. When even in New York last year, like when he's been allowed to step into his throw, which has really been one of the biggest issues, is excuse me, getting over a cold as well. So uh, if I cough, you're just gonna have to excuse me. I'm sorry. But really, like when he's able to like step into his throws, he can drive the ball into some like pretty tight windows. So I don't want to like come out here and say like this is a Minshew situation where like he just doesn't have the ability at all to push the ball. Like he has a stronger arm than Minshew. It's probably around league average. It's not below average. It's probably right around league average. It's not as strong as it was before the neck surgeries when he was younger. But it's still not this weak noodle arm where he's just completely unable to throw the deep ball or anything like that. So um, I do want to make that point.
Yeah, that's fair. It's nothing wrong with that. Definitely, like I said, it's the first game of the year. My dream stat for him is to have a very perfect game, hit all the layups, get Tyler Warner involved, feed Jonathan Taylor, which is my go-to motive. What is a dream scenario of the offense for you in this game, especially involving Jonathan Taylor, knowing he's in the backfield? Of course, last year the idea was to give him most of the load of the work to ease the pressure off of Anthony Richardson. But having a veteran like Daniel Jones back there now, you might see more of a balance. What's your thought about that?
Yeah, I think for sure, like one of the most underrated storylines that hasn't really been talked about nationally, especially like in the preview of this game, has been the new additions along the offensive line in the interior. Because when you look at the matchup, the Giants, or not the Giants, the Dolphins, they have a very strong defensive line rotation. Like Seaver's one of the best interior defensive linemen in football. Chop Robinson was probably the second best rookie last year as a pass rusher. Him and Jared Verse were like the two that just came out the gates and flashed. And then obviously, getting those guys back that they were missing last year in who's the passer? I don't have it pulled up. I don't have stuff pulled up in front of me right now. But Bradley
Guys like
Chubb.
Jalen Phillips last year.
Yeah, Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb were both, dealt with a lot of injuries last year. Like having those guys back will be big. Like this is a very and the first round draft pick as well for them, defensive tackle. So yeah, they have a very, very, very talented and deep defensive line. This is going to be a big test, and this is goes with like the Daniel Jones stuff too, because the splits when you look at like when he's pressured versus when he's not pressured are like very drastic. It was in New York, and unfortunately, he dealt with a lot of pressure in New York almost on a yearly basis. So for him to play, that clean football, to avoid turnovers, to avoid making those back-breaking mistakes, they're going to have to keep him clean. And that's going to start in the interior with Bortolini and Gonzalez. Those are really like the two unknown pieces right now, which we have seen them play well in spurts. But this is a whole new ball game for both those guys. So yeah, I think this offense will really go as far as the offensive line will take them this week, and really throughout the season. Like this is going to be a very offensive line dependent unit as far as like whether they're successful or not on a weekly basis.
Absolutely, man. First game of the year, new offensive line. Of course, we got the vets coming back like Q and those guys, but losing Will Fries and Ryan Kelly going into this game, the whole new season, guys are stepping up. There's a lot of pressure on them just to see how they turn out. The first game's not going to be, the overall view for the rest of the season, but it does give you a view of what may happen moving forward, especially with the protections and things. So, the communication between the offensive line and the QB is definitely going to be something to look forward to seeing as well, because it was a lot of miscommunication over the years, especially with Richardson back there. But having a guy like Daniel Jones, like I said, he's probably the more ready quarterback in that room, and I think that's why they went with him starting in this situation.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's something that Bortolini has even talked about, is like having a guy like Daniel Jones back there who can diagnose, those protection issues pre-snap and all that kind of stuff and get them into the right looks. That's important. And that's something that Richardson has struggled with. That's something he struggled with in the preseason. Obviously, we know that Baltimore hit. Like, I mean, that's just an area that they haven't really been strong at, where Ryan Kelly really came into play last year a lot. Being a veteran and, former Pro Bowl, All Pro type of guy, like he was able to kind of handle that load. That's something that Richardson has not really done at, I'm not even going to say a high level, like even at just like an acceptable level, to be a professional quarterback. That's an area he has to grow in. And we still kind of saw that in the preseason. So, yeah, like that for sure plays a role. And that's something that Bornolini pointed out. Like you said, having that guy like Daniel Jones back there, it does make a big difference on getting those guys into the right protection calls and getting them into successful plays.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm looking forward to what the offense is going to bring, but we got to switch pivots into the defensive side, which is your favorite side of
Well, there's
football
also
for the
some other
Indianapolis Colts.
offensive points I do want to make.
Yeah,
There's some other offensive points that I do want to kind of point out. Um, it whenever I was like going through Miami stuff and looking through some of their film last year, like something that really stood out to me was really like the poor tackling and the yards after catch that they give up, yards after contact. They struggled mightily in that area. They're starting, Jack Jones is, coming back, like a bunch of new faces in the secondary, right? Sixth round rookie, starting in the slot, going to be handling a lot of Josh Downs and Tyler Warren. So that could be a really positive matchup. I think this does play very well into the hands of the Colts as far as getting the ball to their playmakers, like a Pittman, like physical playmakers, Pittman, a Tyler Warren, Josh Downs, who's been known to make guys miss and create plays. Like, if you can get the ball to these guys and allow them to be in those yards after catch situations, that's something Miami struggled mightily last year. And really, they have a lot of unknown, you know, look like in that secondary this year. So like that's something the Colts should definitely take advantage of. Is you could see these games where like, sure, are we going to air, like, does Daniel Jones air the ball out 65 yards down the field? No, but he might not have to, because those 6 yard dump off passes could very well turn into those 40, 50, 60 yard gains after the catch with these type of weapons and with Miami's deficiencies in that area. So that's something I really want to look at. And I think the RPO game with the linebackers there, they were very successful against RPOs last year, just from what the stuff that I'd charted. Um, so I think that could be like a really interesting matchup is the RPO game. But the RPO game last year with the Colts did not have Tyler Warren. And that is, Tyler Warren had one of the highest graded college seasons of all time from a tight end on RPO concepts last season in college. So Tyler Warren could open up a whole new area for this team on RPO concepts, and we know Shane Steichen loves those. So that's going to be a really fun chess match. Is a strength on strength with the Dolphins. They did a very good job on RPOs last year. The Colts love to run a lot of RPOs and have been very successful about it. So can Tyler Warren overcome those linebackers who have had success? And can he kind of take this RPO game of the Colts to like the next level?
I sure hope he does, because you know how much I love Tyler Warren, that handsome son of a gun of a tight end that we're going to see debuted this weekend. Looking forward to seeing what he's going to do, man. He's had himself a good offseason, training camp wise, even the joint practices as well. Such a
He
stud.
looks he
Such a
looks like a
stud.
stud. He looks like a
Such a
stud
stud.
early on. And I know, like, obviously in the draft process, it wasn't necessarily more about Tyler Warren or Colson Loveland or whoever. It was really more for me just about the position of tight end, at that spot, because as we all know, huge Jahad Campbell fan over here. And we saw what he did last night, by the way. Looked great. The fact that he fell to 31 to the Eagles, just how do we keep letting this happen? Um, but yeah, I mean, like once they could kind of short up the secondary, I kind of saw the vision. I was like, okay, like I'm on board with whichever guy they want. Obviously, they took Warren, and the returns immediately have looked, stellar. So really looking forward to watching him work this weekend. I think this is a really prime matchup because of, like I said, where Miami struggled last year were those yards after the catch and specifically yards after contact. They missed a lot of those last year and turned really small games into really big games. And if there's one area of Tyler Warren's that I've kind of championed through college and really through the draft process, it was his yards after catch and yards after contact ability. This can set up to be just an unbelievably massive debut for him.
Love it, man. You get me hyped up. I love it. I love to hear it. Love to hear it. Ready to switch over to the defensive side now? All right. Your favorite
Yeah,
side of football, of
yeah,
course,
well,
especially after last year and the year before. Loved it so much. But we talked about the debuts of the offensive side for Daniel Jones and them. Switching it to defense, we get a debut first official week of the Lou Anarumo defense. It's going to be interesting to see what that looks like. It's a speedy offense because we know how fast the Miami Dolphins offense is, especially with the quarterback situation they have. They can pretty much rip off any defense they play against if they are hitting in stride. And a lot of things of the past with the Colts defenses, they're giving up yards after the catch, poor tackling, miscommunication on coverages. But with this scheme, with Lou Anarumo is bringing and the adjustments they did in the offseason with the secondary, you might see a different Colts defense than what we're used to seeing. What is your overall prediction of Lou Anarumo's scheme going up against this Miami offense?
Well, I mean, this is one of those games where it's really kind of hard to diagnose because like they are dealing with injuries. The main thing is they're going to be very physical, right? Like we saw so many times last year, and we've seen it really for years now. The Colts play these type of receivers who are just unbelievable yards after catch machines, burners, those type of guys that, you just get the ball in their hands and they can house it on you at any moment they touch the ball. And the Colts have played that, that cover three, that cover one, that zone coverage, with Gus Bradley and with Matt Eberflus. I mean, this is going on for years. This wasn't just Bradley. This is the type of defense that Ballard has really championed, and it's really got them into a lot of hot waters before with matchups like this because they allowed a lot of easy completions, and then they struggled to wrap up these guys. This is going to be a very huge departure from what we're used to seeing. They're going to be very physical. Charvarius Ward, they've already said he's going to travel with the number one receiver this year. So wherever Tyreek Hill lines up, there's a very good shot that you're going to see Charvarius Ward right there with him, no matter where he goes. And I think Xavier Howard too is he's going to be one of the biggest X factors in this game as far as a guy that a vet who has played with speed in the past, just made tons of plays on balls. This is a very, very dangerous matchup because Tua did not play last year. Anytime you don't get pressure on a guy like Tua and you allow him to kind of just sit back there, he will carve you up. He's one of those guys that, he'll go 10 for 10. He won't miss if you give him time. Where I think the Colts can kind of take advantage of this is Miami's offensive line. Miami's offensive line is in a similar situation as the Colts with some new faces, but on a much worse level. They don't have the Quentin Nelson, the Bernard Ryman, those type of guys to kind of absorb the freshness of those other guys and kind of help them along. Like this is very much going to be a trial by fire game for Miami's offensive line. DeForest Buckner is in just an absolute huge advantage of a matchup interior wise. I think they have 3 new interior offensive linemen who have kind of struggled in the past as well. And they've got to match up against Grove and they've got to match up against Buck. And that's hard for the best offensive lineman in the game. Much less a very new offensive line that's still trying to kind of gel together. And then on the flip side of that, you have a guy, Austin Jackson at tackle who has been, a pretty good player for them, but he's been dealing with some injuries and stuff as well. So I think I think this is a game where Latu has a chance to really shine through, whether he has grown or whether we're still kind of getting the same, not being able to finish plays, kind of getting washed out of in the run game, that kind of stuff. So they're going to have to take advantage because this defensive line or the defensive backfield, like I said, excuse me, they're going to press. They're going to be physical with these guys at the line of scrimmage. There's not going to be many free releases at all for these guys. They're going to be in their face and they're going to make them work. So if the defensive line can capitalize on that, this could be a very good day for the Colts defense. If the defensive line does not capitalize and that Miami offensive line gives Tua time, it's going to be a long day at the office because if you give him any kind of time, he will pick you apart. And like I said, this Miami team, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, obviously the tight end spot for them is going to be a very huge unknown with Darren Waller missing the game. And it was kind of an unknown even with Waller, but now you don't really know, like tight end by committee. It could very much look like what the Colts tight end situation was the last couple of years. So Hill and Waddle, though, they can beat you by themselves. So tackling is going to be at a premium. Like if those guys do catch the ball, you've got to wrap up. You've got to tackle strong. Communication is going to be key because Mike McDaniel is a master of, especially in week ones, which is something I'll point out here in a little bit. Like he's a master of getting things frazzled and disguised and stuff like that. So communication in a new offense with guys like Cam Bynum, and that's really why I think they went the veteran route, is you don't really have a lot of guys like learning on the fly. Linebacker play, Zaire Franklin, they're probably going to isolate these linebackers, Bocce and Franklin. They're going to try to isolate those guys into coverage and see if they can get some easy completions on them. That's going to be a big key. So yeah, I would say just stay disciplined. Try to avoid penalties, but also the defensive line has to show up, and you have to get pressure on Tua. And if they can do that, they can have a good day.
Absolutely, man, they can. One of the X factors I have for me would be Tre'Davious Ward. Of course, he looked stellar in the joint practices against the Ravens. This is his first test going up against the speedy offense. And with Lou Anarumo's scheme, I think, the more pressure you put on, the quarterback to make some bad passes, the bigger the success you have out the secondary. And I think that was one of the key things was pretty much the defensive line of last year, not finishing the play. And with this scheme, the difference, I think, being more aggressive, you might see a bigger turnover ratio than what we were already used to seeing. What's
Absolutely.
your thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that plays such a huge role. Like the defensive line last year, I mean, they were almost playing with house money because it's very hard to get pressure on a consistent basis whenever people are getting the ball out so quickly. I mean, it's 1-2 out. I mean, like that is so hard to get pressure on a quarterback in those situations because just the way the defense that they ran, they played so off coverage. Like they allowed the easy completions and kind of counted on those gang tackles to the ball. And it was just very difficult to, as a defensive line to kind of rush like that. So yeah, like this scheme should be more advantageous for the Colts defensive line to get more pressures, more sacks, all that kind of stuff this year.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I like the new scheme that we got going on here. I love the new acquisitions. I'm hoping we get a dance celebration with Biden this week. I'm looking forward to seeing what the safety room is going to do this week as well. A lot of missed coverages last year. With the Rodney Thomas situation, everyone at safety, a lot of wide open touchdowns just due to miscommunication back there. But with Bynum back there now, and Cross getting back there, I think we got a better safety room than what we're used to seeing. What's your thoughts on the safety room going into this week?
Yeah, I mean it's going to be big as far as keeping things in front of them, and that's what you have to do with guys like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Like you have to keep things in front of you because the minute they get behind you, that's when they're at their most dangerous. So yeah, Cam Bynum I thought was a fantastic signing. He has played in a very difficult style of defense last year with Brian Flores, where there was a lot of disguises, and the safeties having to know where they're at and make those type of plays, and he excelled in those. So yeah, I'm really excited. I think Nick Cross has a chance to be a really good player in this style of defense as well. And really, like, there's going to be times where, like, you might only see Bynum on the field. I know, like, in dime packages and stuff like that, they're not big fans of, or well, not even safeties, but more like linebacker play. Like, they're not big fans. And Lou's even said this, like, we don't want linebackers matched up on wide receivers. So, in dime packages, you might only see Zaire Franklin or Joe Bocce out there, and you might see a bunch of DBs out there. You might see Nick Cross and Kenny Moore and whoever else they decide to put out there, in those situations. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting watch, especially with it being week one. There's just so much unknown right now with everything, especially with this Colts team, because there's been such a change of where they have been in the last few years. As far as there's way more vets. Obviously, the coordinator change is completely different. The quarterback change is completely different. There's so many unknowns, with what we're going to see on Sunday from Indianapolis.
I agree, and I'm glad you mentioned the unknowns because there was a thought process in my head just for a split second. Packages that involve Anthony Richardson. Is that a possibility this week that he can be available in certain packages?
No, no, I don't think so. I mean, I'm never going to say like there's 100% chance that it's not going to happen because it's the NFL and you never know. But I think it's extremely unlikely that we see something like that. Especially because like what kind of situations really like would you bring him in on that? Um, guys like Daniel Jones and stuff like that, can't run. So sorry, my wife is over here. Um, you're still going to get that quarterback run game. You're still going to be able to do all that kind of stuff, and I don't see a way that they pull this type of move, and they still have design packages for him. I just think that's more like wishful thinking from fans as opposed to like actually being a game plan.
We know Colts fans on game day, they come up with the biggest solutions because, they're usually right in certain scenarios. But, that's just one of those things that they'll probably mention during the game when they get flustered. But it'll be interesting this week to see what they do. I do have the Colts favorite to win this game. I don't think it'll be a blowout, but I think it'll be an offensive showing from the Colts that get them the victory. Usually I'm used to seeing the defense being stellar. Of course, it'll probably be a perfect balance, hopefully, because we're used to seeing one side of the ball having a good half and then the other side struggling. But I think it'll be an offensive showing this week.
Yeah, like are we like doing our predictions or and stuff like that here?
Yes,
Okay. Well, this is funny enough. This is probably going to make a lot of Colts fans extremely happy. Um, I actually have Miami winning this game, um, simply from the fact that Mike McDaniels, which is something I'd said earlier, which I told you I would get to it, but Mike McDaniel is 3-0, um, in season openers. Like he's never lost a season opener. They come very well prepared. They're a very dangerous team. On the flip side, the Colts haven't won a season opener in what 2013, 2014. Like it's been 10, 11 seasons by now. So it's really hard for me to pick against a guy that's never lost a season opener versus a team that never wins season openers. Those things where like I've got to see it first before I'm bought in. Um, and look, if they lose this game, and especially if Daniel Jones plays bad, like the noise from fans and media and all that, like, it's gonna be loud. But with me, like I don't really like get like hot take-ish on stuff in week one. Like you need to see like 4 to 6 weeks of play before you really like know what is happening because things are so new. So yeah, I'm gonna have Miami take this game. It's gonna be a very close game, like you said. I don't think it's gonna be a blowout or anything. I think it's gonna be tough, but I will say the Colts, they have something to fight for in this game. Or Jim Irsay's going in the Ring of Honor. They're at home. They have this, albatross of season losing openers on their back. Like there's a lot for them to play for. There's been a lot of flux in Miami in the offseason, a lot of really chaos go on around there. So can they kind of take advantage of the energy in the building and propel that to a win? I hope so. Because I'd really love to see the season openers, streak snapped. But until it happens. And on top of that, like I said, Mike McDaniel never losing a season opener yet in his young career. This will be his fourth one, so he's 3-0 already in those situations. It's kind of hard for me to pick the Colts to win this game.
No, it's nothing wrong with
Which, like
that.
I said, Colts fans should love because
Right.
they're looking for losing. They want to lose, so.
Yeah, there's still a lot of fans that still want us to tank in the situation to, get a high pick, which is insane to think. But like I said, they don't surprise me ever. So I'm pretty sure this weekend will be, as usual, very entertaining for me. But any last thoughts that you wanted to mention before we head about?
Yeah, just like how special it is to see Jim Irsay going into the Ring of Honor and the Colts Hall of Fame and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be a really special atmosphere in there. He's certainly earned every right, like everything that this city has and this franchise has is because of Jim Irsay, the good and the bad. So it's going to be a really special week, and I really do hope that they can get this victory for him. They have a lot to play for. It's going to be very emotional for a lot of people in that building. Um, but yeah, I really do wish he was here to go in person and really enjoy that. But yeah, like it's going to be a really good atmosphere, really fun game. If you're able to make it, if you're in Indianapolis, I would absolutely recommend going because it's going to be a special week down there. Especially with all the stuff going on for the boss. So yeah, just it's kind of my last thoughts there. But I'm so excited for football to be back. I'm ready for Colts football to be back. I'm ready to see this team finally turn the corner, win some football games, and I would love nothing more than for them to break this streak and get a dub and to see all these players who've been criticized, uh, whether it's Daniel Jones, whether it's Jonathan Taylor, whether it's Michael Pittman or A.D. Mitchell, whether it's Latu. There's just been so many criticisms thrown these guys' way for so many years, and to see them have success, I think, would be really awesome because they deserve it. There's a lot of guys on this team that have, they work their asses off, and they're great in the community. Even Zaire Franklin today, Zaire Franklin announced um, that charity for every tackle he makes, $44 is going to charity, and then Coca-Cola or something like that, they doubled it. So $88 to charity for every Zaire Franklin tackle. Like that's such a huge thing for the community. So yeah, to root against these guys and to want to see them fail, excuse my language or anything. I just think it's a bunch of bullshit. So yeah, I'm rooting for a successful season. I'm rooting for all these guys to succeed and hit the goals that they want to hit, and hopefully excuse me, hopefully it leads to wins. Gosh, I hate this cold, man. Or I don't even know if it's the cold or not. Like I've been sick for like 2 weeks, and like this is the last thing I have left to get rid of. Is this like annoying cough? Is like the only thing left that I'm hanging on to. So it makes talking very difficult. So just kind of bear with me through it. Week one, or hopefully not week two. Hopefully it's gone by then. But yeah, until then, I do apologize. But yeah, I'm hoping for a Colts victory, and like I really do want to see these guys succeed.
Hey man, same here, same here. It's gonna hit a little different when you don't get the roofs open type tweets. Not anymore this year. Definitely going to miss that as well. Rest in peace again to Jim Irsay. Wish the Colts the best of luck this week. Go out there and just play football, man. That's what you are here to do. That's what you do best. We're here rooting for you regardless of the situation. We just don't want another roller coaster here. So, of course, I'm rooting for a victory this weekend. You guys stay safe. I hope you enjoy the game as well. We'll be back to give you our thoughts on the game after, of course, and then we'll be heading into week 2. But until then, that is Landon. This is Marcus. And until next time, go Colts. Have a good weekend.